Jeremy Clarkson, the greatest raid of all time, the full documentary. Shouts out to ye old sandwichana. We gotta trust it. Oh wait, I think I have to do it this way. We'd be on bullshit sometimes. I'm not gonna lie to you. Yo, is Opera must have updated. Them niggas just gave me a whole intro. Jesus Christ. Y'all like Leo Skeppy? Somebody gotta let me know. The North.
A couple of years ago, I made a TV program about my father-in-law who won a Victoria Cross.
That's
at
crazy.
Harlem.
He's like Samuel L. Jackson.
And
but
since
white.
then, I've been on the hunt for a follow-up. Another nugget of incredible heroism in the face of impossible odds.
What up, Kaylee? How you doing, Queen?
Of course, most war stories are well-known, well-documented, and well-celebrated. The Battle of Britain, Rorke's Drift, and so on. But one day, while trolling through a second-hand bookshop, I came across a story that's hardly known or celebrated at all. It's the story of an amazing battle, a battle where more VCs were earned more quickly than any other action in the Second World War. It's a story full of ingenuity, pluck, and genuine courage. It had the lot.
Driving on the highway makes me kill myself.
I decided to do some digging. And it turned out that while very few people in the outside world know anything about this extraordinary battle, they certainly do in military circles. And they call it the greatest raid of all.
What battle is this? The attack on St. Lizier? Oh, I know about this. Don't worry, I can't read or pronounce it.
In
That's just my life.
1941, the Battle of Britain was won, but the Battle of the Atlantic was still raging, and we were losing.
I just don't understand how the world worked back in the day, bro. Like, you mean to tell me it was just in these conditions?
Were running amok among the convoys bringing supplies from America.
Well,
9 million tons of shipping had already been sunk, and the shipyards in Britain simply couldn't replace it fast enough. Britain was beginning to starve. Winston Churchill said in his diaries, the only thing that truly frightened me in the war was the U-boat peril.
Oh, that's tragic.
Said he was even more anxious about the Battle of the Atlantic than he was about the Battle of Britain. And then into the equation sailed the Tirpitz. Tirpitz was the fastest and most modern battleship in the war. Even though her armour was a foot thick, she could thunder along at 30 knots. And with 8 15-inch guns, she packed a huge punch.
A foot thick?
Certainly, the Royal Navy had very little in its arsenal to take on a ship of this magnitude. And that was a nightmare for the people who worked here in Churchill's war rooms. Each of these dots on this map represents a convoy movement. If Tirpitz got among them beyond the range of the Royal Air Force, we would almost certainly lose the war. It was that simple. There was, however, a drawback to Tirpitz's size.
So Jeremy
You see, if
Clarkson
she
does
were to be damaged while out in the middle of the Atlantic, she couldn't very well go back to Germany for repairs, because that would mean limping past Britain, past the RAF, past our coastal fleet, and that would be a death sentence for her. So she'd have to go to a dry dock on the Atlantic coast of France. But there was only one dry dock on the Atlantic coast of France that was big enough to handle a ship of Tirpitz's size. This one. This is the Normandy dock in Saint-Nazaire. It had been built in the 30s when France was making giant ocean liners. And now, to make sure the Tirpitz could never have a home on the Atlantic seaboard, it had to be destroyed. Now, the only way that you could put this dock out of action is to destroy this gate. And that was a problem. It couldn't be done with a naval bombardment because the mouth of the estuary is actually 6 miles away in that direction.
Yeah, like
it couldn't be done.
Literally on the highway sometimes, Kaylee, I'll literally will drive on the shoulder and pass trucks just because I'm not dealing with that shit. I'm not at all. I'm not gonna like, they should be the ones in one lane driving like the speed limit or 10 minutes less. I mean, 10 miles per hour less than the speed limit. And they should let through traffic go. Like, that's what the whole fucking idea of the left lane is. But somehow no drivers understand that.
With a submarine, because this whole area was crisscrossed with anti-submarine nets. Couldn't be done over land because northern France was in German hands. And for two reasons, it couldn't be done from the air either. Firstly, Second World War bombing raids were notoriously inaccurate. Only 22% of bombs landed within 5 miles of the target.
Oh shit! So in Africa, the fast lane is the right lane. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. So here, the fast lane is the left lane, and the left lane is considered like the fast lane / the passing lane. The right lane is considered like the slow lane. Like, that's where you you drive like bullshit.
So the chances...
I just still don't even think that science existed back then, because they were just dropping bombs, dog. Bombs. Like, what?
Being able to hit a...
It was like they would open the gates and they'd be like, all right, listen, this is as much as we can carry. Let's just fucking drop everything and hope we hit it.
Gates from 6,000.
Also, do you guys know what the fuck is going on in Lebanon? Has anybody looked at that?
1,000 feet in the sky was slim at the best of times. And it wouldn't be the best of times because right next door to the dry dock were 14 U-boat pens.
Oh shit. Oh, so they was ready.
These were some of the most precious facilities in the German armory. And to protect them, the Saint-Nazaire area bristled with 80 anti-air...
So pretty much just imagine a bomb bigger than Hiroshima, right? But not nuclear. They just launched that bitch 2 days ago and just dropped that bitch on the city. That shit makes no sense. And nobody's talking about it. It's not on any news or it's just, it makes no sense. I don't understand what's going on in the world right now. Everything's being so suppressed.
Guns and artillery.
Yeah. Israel is fucking them niggas up right now, and America is just allowing that shit. Well, the whole world is allowing that shit, and I don't understand. I don't understand. My thoughts on what the UN was supposed to be is obviously a fucking a lie, because holy shit, they're getting fucked up, bro. They're getting fucked up over there, and it is not okay.
And in the town itself, there were 5,000 troops. Destroying the dock then using conventional forces, the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, out of the question.
America's with Israel. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I know oil is a very, very big, high commodity, but holy shit, it's like a genocide. It's literally we're going back in the world, back in the day. It's like the stuff that's happening right now is shit that was happening when we weren't even alive, back in the 70s and 60s and 50s. And it doesn't even make sense. How are people sleeping at night?
So the job was given to a group of men who really had only just
mostly the orange fuck, because we don't believe in that shit.
The Commandos.
Oh, this music must have got copyrighted or something, because
the Commandos were the brainchild of Churchill,
right,
who'd seen similar outfits operate successfully in both the Boer War and the First World War. A small number of highly trained soldiers would get in fast, do a huge amount of damage, and then get out before the enemy had time to get organized. Churchill liked this. He called it the butcher and bolt approach. So what kind of men were they? Well, if popular myth is anything to go by, they were lantern-jawed killing machines who could headbutt their way through oak doors. The reality, though, was rather different.
I can only imagine. They're probably the scaredest people there. They were imagine it's you and 7 of your homies You and 7 of your homies, and you're just sneaking past enemy lines. Nobody's coming to get you if you fail. Nobody's gonna say that like, oh, what you did was because we told you to do it. You're just out there. I can never imagine that there are people who like. There's probably one guy on that whole thing that like enjoyed it and like knew what he was getting into. Everybody else was like, fuck this, dude. Like, Commander, really? This is what we're doing?
Brett in my regiment was in my commando, 12th Commando, and he'd written a book on the Byzantine age or Byzantine architecture or something.
One fellow who got a divinity degree from Trinity College Dublin.
Lance Corporal Potts had been a
divinity degree
at Oxford or Cambridge.
They included a poacher, a TT motorcycle rider, so a mixed bag.
What they represented was a complete revolution in the concept of soldiering. Because they were chosen for their individuality, their intelligence, their initiative. And nobody embodied that ethos more than this man, Mickey Byrne. I've got his autobiography here, and what a life. He had a privileged upbringing, Winchester, Oxford, and then he met Guy Burgess, the chap who went on to become a Soviet spy, and they became lovers. Mickey, though, became a Nazi sympathiser, went to Germany, met Hitler, got a signed copy of Mein Kampf, and was one of the very first people to be shown around Dachau, the concentration camp.
What the fuck?
He knew Bertrand Russell, he knew Audrey Hepburn, he knew the King and Queen, he even met Roosevelt. He really was a Telegraph obituary writer's wet dream. But all things considered, not the sort of man you'd expect to find in a commando's green beret. By the start of the war, however, Mickey had seen the Nazi threat for what it really was, and had found something else to suit his maverick streak. The commandos.
People were left to make up their own minds.
I always imagine like if I would have like believed shit back then, like if all the propaganda and shit, would that have like gotten to me and would I have believed it? But then like nowadays it doesn't, and it's just it doesn't at all, and it's just like you got to be able to see through that shit and know that there's like always something bigger going on than what's being relayed to you.
Everybody may be killed.
Big booga, big booga, big booga.
Maybe the action of a private soldier who's left to command a trench.
Always love a shot of tequila at fucking 9 in the morning,
dude.
Why not?
Given that every single one of us might be as important as a brigadier. We were all individuals, you know. Discipline
Thank you
did
for the love,
matter,
King.
of course, but I wouldn't have said it was absolutely first.
The commando forces were made up of volunteers from any of the regular army units, and the philosophy of how they went about their daily business was a million miles from that of the conventional military. For a start, they didn't bother with barracks or regimental headquarters because the commandos didn't want to waste training time on mundane chores such as cleaning or maintenance. Instead, they simply got digs in a nearby town. And there was no sergeant major on hand to tell them what to do every minute of the day.
Instead of saying parade tomorrow on the main square in Weymouth, it might be parade tomorrow at 10 o'clock on the in the marketplace at Dorchester, and find your own bloody way there, you know.
You weren't shouted at. There wasn't any of this shouting or bullying or anything that you got in the regular army. You led by example. So, you know, the officer had to do everything that you did.
If the officers can do it, I can do it. If the officers can do it.
Unfortunately, though, the British Army...
That makes sense. Because it definitely ain't like that no more. You go to college and join the military, niggas ain't respecting you at all until you get into combat. Like, because they know for a fact you don't do shit but paper push. And your whole goal was to come in and have some type of power over the people who just joined because their heart was actually in it. But yeah, I don't know. I always feel weird about LTs. But there's got to be somebody with a fucking brain, you know what I'm saying, at the top. It only makes sense. You can't have a bunch of fucking dogs out here just running wild.
Top brass were a deeply conservative bunch, and they really didn't like the new commando philosophy.
The regular Army were doing their best to get us disbanded. They hated us.
God damn! I understand there was probably no other way, but holy shit! Getting medevac, you probably broke more fucking bones before. You were probably more injured before you even got home, dude. God damn.
And because our standards were so high, we'd creamed off the best of the people in the regiments. And in fact, a lot of COs refused to allow people to volunteer.
This resistance by the regular army certainly got Churchill's back up. What I have here is a letter he wrote to the Secretary of State for War. And he says, I hear that the whole position of the commandos is being questioned. They've been told no more recruiting and that their future is in the melting pot. Says he feels very strongly about this. Says the defeat of France by Germany was accomplished by an incredibly small number of highly equipped elite, while the dull mass of the German army came on behind. And then here, for every reason, therefore, we must develop the commando idea.
Damn.
Pretty clear cut.
Yeah. They knew exactly what they wanted. He was like,
1941 drew to a close, Japan joined the war, and the Royal Navy had to send a fleet to the Far East. So there was even less to hold the Tirpitz at bay. What's more, we were losing the Battle of the Atlantic. We were losing in North Africa, and London was in ruins. So if Churchill's commandos really could smash up Saint-Nazaire, it might give a sense back home that Britain wasn't finished just yet.
Everywhere almost we were on retreat, and people were really becoming negative, and Churchill wanted something which would be successful aggression.
The plan to destroy the 1,500-ton dock was called Operation Chariot, and it was certainly bold. The commandos would get hold of a couple of destroyers from somewhere and sail them from Cornwall over to western France. Now, one of these destroyers would be filled with explosives. And while the RAF distracted the Germans with a bombing raid over Saint-Nazaire, they would somehow sneak it up the estuary without being seen by anyone in the gun emplacements here, 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 and here, or by anyone with a searchlight here, 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 and here. And then, to see what happens next, we have to turn to the actual model built to plan the raid. The destroyer, with the explosives in it, would ram the dock gates here, and the commandos would jump off, and right underneath all the guns positioned to protect the U-boat pens here, they'd run around, shooting anything that moved and blowing up anything that didn't. Then, after the destroyer exploded, destroying the lock gate,
how do they get out?
They'd all meet here at this not at all exposed jetty and get back on the second destroyer, which somehow wouldn't have been blown to pieces while it was hanging around in the estuary for a couple of hours waiting for them to finish. It would then sail back down the estuary, past all the guns, and go home.
How?
Right.
Niggas be having balls. Like, that's what I be saying. But it takes shit like this. Like, it takes somebody believing that this would work to accomplish like crazy things. You know what I mean? That's so nuts.
The plan was presented to the War Office by Louis Mountbatten, head of the Combined Operations Unit. And unsurprisingly, it met resistance. One commander-in-chief was particularly vocal.
I remember we started the meeting by saying, well, Dickie, old cock, if you're prepared to lose all your soldiers and all your ships, I suppose you can take on this task, which I regard as absolutely impossible. I said, it's the fact that it is regarded as impossible, which makes it possible. The Germans will never think we'll attempt it.
Facts, though. Because in their head, they're like, you're probably like, damn, I got all these defenses. Like, nobody would have the balls to really drive up here. Like, they think that we got shit locked down over here for real. But a lot of that was like, you got to think about it, right? Like, they got a lot of people back then for sure, but people are people at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So like, at the end of the day, all of those positions are not going to be fully like locked in. You know what I'm saying? Some of them are probably drunk. Some of them are probably, you got 2 or 3 guys who called out because they was like, they got to fuck something. You know what I'm saying? They wife making some crazy food that night. We already went into war. So like, I'm not about to sit out here on this gun perch all day. Ain't nobody's going to pull up to the heart of the strongest fucking, the strongest defended area. Nobody will pull up over here. There's no way. They were like, oh, we're good forever. Psych, nigga. What up, Claude?
Mountbatten's enthusiasm certainly didn't rub off on the RAF. You can see here in these Operation Chariot minutes that the powers that be requested a force of about 100 aircraft for the diversionary bombing raid in 3 waves. But on the back, Vice Marshal Saunby says, I don't agree that such a heavy scale of attack is needed. We want about 20 Whitleys, which are bombers, hanging around overhead, dropping an occasional bomb. And he's backed up by one of his advisors, this chap called...
this video is Jeremy Clarkson, the greatest raid of all time. The full documentary is basically about the Battle of Nazir.
Says that Operation Chariot can...
I think it was the first use of the first real success of like British commandos.
Command can provide no more than 35 aircraft without prejudicing their other commitments. You might have thought the Navy would be keen, especially since the operation was designed to neutralize the Tirpitz. But no. The Commander-in-Chief here from Plymouth Command writes, the plan entails the sacrifice of the landing party and endangers 2 valuable ships for a small chance of success. He actually says negligible chance here. There's another guy writing here who says, I'm not hopeful as regards the result of the impact between the destroyer and the lock gate.
The fact that they still have these documents is so amazing. Like, if I really just hope that like we don't go through one of those like weird times where like all of like history gets wiped out again. You know what I mean? Like how tyrants and shit were doing back in the day, destroying libraries and all that stuff, bro. We need this kind of shit. Like, if we don't have this kind of shit, this kind of information, like, there's no way to stay ground. People are going to start rewriting everything.
I think the lock gates will remain partially intact and the destroyer will look silly. If that happens, much of the proposed plan fails. Eventually, though, the Navy did...
I would want a nigga to show me, like, what gate is blocking a full destroyer from blowing up right in the dead center of it. What gate is not getting destroyed from that? Like, that doesn't even make sense. That doesn't even, like, I couldn't even fathom that.
Find one boat. It was called HMS Campbelltown, a clapped-out American World War I destroyer that was on loan to the British.
I would have been so in belief of this working.
She was not ideal for the job, known for her poor, slow-speed maneuverability and her large turning circle. But these drawbacks didn't dampen the spirits of the commandos.
I thought we would...
You can't find what on the list? I don't understand. It's right here. 4/6/2026. This is the last video we watched last time we were here. 4/4/2026. You see how I liked it? This is where we are on the list. This is how far back we are.
Get away with it. That I would be wounded romantically and a beautiful nurse would look after me in hospital. I was very young.
You were doing all this heavy training and nothing's happening, so very frustrated. So I think when we were finally briefed on the model, I mean, we thought, well, hell, this is going to be something.
We had been trained both in the dark, blindfolded in the day, in every form of demolition to do with dock demolitions, trains, and anything. So when we heard that we were going to blow up the dock installations at Saint-Nazaire, I suppose really it was a feeling of elation.
Damn.
At this stage, people were saying, well, what do you think? To me, you see. And I said, it's going to be a piece of cake. We're going to go in there and knock them for six, because that reflected the optimistic attitude. We were going to go in there, blow up this bloody dock, and we'll be out.
We had volunteered, after all, for danger. And the
fact that these people like live through this shit, bro.
And therefore
what?
It could succeed.
Old people blow my mind.
As the commandos prepared on land, the Navy set about Campbelltown.
Like, this is crazy,
the old
bro.
tub would have to sneak past 80 gun.
Imagine living in a time where like you didn't even have a phone on the wall in your house, to now every person that you see is like walking around with a fucking full-on computer. Like
Placements on its way up the Saint Nazaire estuary, so it had to be disguised, and they only had 12 days to do the work. In the end, they removed 2 funnels and sloped the other 2 backwards, so at a glance it looked a bit like a German destroyer. And then there was the problem of turning it into a time bomb. This job was given to a brilliant young naval officer called Lieutenant Nigel Tibbets. He was a shy chap with a stammer who, when his girlfriend announced that she'd become fond of him, replied, "Well, then I suppose we shall have to get married." However, while he was not desperately confident with women, he was a whiz with explosives, one of the best students the Dartmouth Naval College had ever seen. But even he faced difficulties with how you turn a whole ship into a bomb.
That's what I'm saying. It's crazy, really, Kaylee. It really is. Oh, that's so nice,
The
Chloe.
first problem he had was deciding where in the ship to place the explosives. Because you see, if you can imagine, this is the gate to the dock and this is the ship. What's going to happen after it hits? I mean, is it just going to end up here, in which case you want the bomb in the front? Or is it going to rear up, in which case you want the bomb sort of in the middle, toward the bottom? I suppose theoretically it would be possible, if the ship were going fast enough, for it to actually ride right over the top of the gate and end up in the dock itself. I mean, who knew? Day and night, Tibbets struggled with this until he decided on a spot 40 feet back from the prow, low down, next to the keel. Then he had to work out how to set the explosives off. Back then, there was no...
Wouldn't it have made sense, too, to just crash it right there? Like, it would be mad hard to move that ship out of the... Like, I feel like that would slow shit down a lot anyway. So it's like, regardless or not, the goal should be just to get the ship in the area.
Accurate timing device, so you had to use fuses like this. The idea is that you squeeze the top part here, which breaks a glass capsule on the inside, releasing acid that then slowly burns through a strip of wire. Now, when that snaps, it releases a spring which boings out, setting off the detonator. Now, this was very advanced in 1942, but there were a couple of problems. First of all, it was very susceptible to jolts and shock.
Hey, thank you, Kill. What up, baby?
Want to
49 months.
ram some lock gates at 25 miles an hour with one of these on board, because it might go off instantly, killing everyone. It was also very vague. The strength of the acid varied from fuse to fuse, the strength of the wire varied, the tension of the spring varied. Tibbets couldn't say to within an hour when the bomb might actually go off.
Damn. Because it wasn't that control. It wasn't like any control. I get that. It wasn't like a real time fuse. It was just like, we know you'll have a decent amount of time to get out of there.
To show how big a bang that produces, we've placed a pound of something similar between the front seats of this car.
3, 2, 1, fire in.
That was a pound. Tibbets was going to use 4 1/4 tons.
God damn!
Even if the explosives and the fuses could be trusted to work properly, and even if they could get across to France without being detected and up the estuary without being blown to smithereens, and even if the Campbelltown could hit the lock gates exactly right and the commandos could get off and do whatever it is they had to do, they still had a problem. How do they get home again? Because
Literally.
the Navy wouldn't provide a second destroyer, they were instead given 16 of these.
What the fuck?
Today, this Fairmile ML is a tourist boat taking trippers around Torbay, and certainly it's better suited to this than it ever was for Operation Chariot.
Nigga, you would just be like, you would just be waiting to die.
It was a cheap, mass production boat designed primarily to make the Navy look bigger than it really was.
ML232. May God speed all who sail in her.
It certainly wasn't particularly good in the open sea. It tended to roll badly in a swell, which made everyone on board queasy. It's not so bad if it was only used to bring the soldiers home, but this little fleet would also be used to get half the commandos out to Saint-Nazaire as well.
Oh my God.
So there'd be 15 commandos wedged.
Pretty much every good thing that ever happened with the military, they just were in the worst conditions possible while they made it happen. Like nobody's ever been like, oh, dude, you know that one boat that we built because it was supposed to like change the war and like be the greatest thing ever? Yeah, so that one actually didn't do shit. It was these tiny little fucking U-boat things that we created with barely any money. I don't even know how the workers survived in it. Everybody was pretty much just inside soaking in their own shit. But, oh man, we made it happen and it worked.
Down here with all their kit. And when they got to the other end, they'd be expected to get out and start fighting immediately.
It's a jury.
There wasn't only seasickness to worry about, because while each ship had small
Gary,
guns
what up,
fore
baby?
and aft,
Welcome.
it didn't have any armour.
We're finally learning
No, really.
something.
All that stood between the German guns and the men down here were a few planks of wood. And to make matters worse, each boat was fitted with 2 500-gallon long-range fuel tanks, which were completely exposed on the deck. Campbelltown was a bomb on purpose. These things, they were bombs by accident. Honestly, it's hard to think of any vessel less well-suited to the job in hand.
You would think they would have had
Commandos
something else.
were hard men, good fighters. But they've been picked for their intelligence as well, so they must have known that the chances of getting to Saint-Nazaire were small.
Thank you for that,
The
Gango.
chances of doing
Thank you
the
for
job
popping
were
back up on us.
microscopic. And the
I hope you
chances
have
of
fun
them
here,
getting
man. We have a
home
lot of
again
good
on
times.
a wooden boat, groaning under the weight of exposed fuel tanks, past an alerted enemy were virtually non-existent. They must have known that Operation Chariot, for the vast majority, was going to be a one-way ticket.
We were all of us told if we wanted to leave a letter for our next of kin, our loved ones, you could do so. And you wrote on the envelope.
Look at this nigga's eyes, bro. Look at his eye. Like, this dude had seen something. Like, look at this nigga. Oh my God.
To be posted in the event of my having to return.
And there was one, Sergeant Bill Gibson, who I knew them all very well indeed. And I remember seeing his face, and I knew he was going to be killed.
My dearest Dad, by the time you get this, I shall be one of the many who have sacrificed their unimportant lives for what little ideals we may have. I can only hope that by laying down my life, the generations to come might in some way remember us and benefit by what we've done. At a time like this, I turn to you, Dad, and God. I hope there will be peace for everyone soon. My love to everyone. I'll remember you. Your loving son.
Oh my God.
Somehow
That's so sad. I would hate to get a letter like that.
To write your last letter to your parents. No, my attitude was I'm coming back.
That's what the fuck I'm talking about.
Men came to me and said, would you take these letters home to our wives if we're killed? And I said, but wait a minute, I'm going with you. Oh, you won't be killed, I said. They were both killed.
The Saint-Nazaire raiders weren't allowed to reveal details of the operation to their loved ones. But for the bomb designer Nigel Tibbets, recently married and the father of a young son, the thought of keeping his wife in the dark was too much. So he told her. And she said afterwards they both sort of knew he wouldn't be coming back. So as the commandos gathered here in Falmouth in Cornwall, ready to join the Campbelltown and the little boats that were anchored out there in the bay, Lord Mountbatten gathered them all together, and very unusually, he said to them that any man who wanted to step down could walk away without a stain on his character. Not one of them did.
Hell no. Hell no. This is what they get signed up for. They knew when they became command, this is what they was doing. Them boys were badass, man. They believed. They believed they could really make it happen. I'm with them.
26th of March, 1942, the Armada set sail with 264 commandos and 357 Navy personnel on board. That's a total of 621 men. Only 227 would come back.
God!
Come one men. That's a total of 621 men. Only 227.
That had to be the craziest ride back. That had to be the craziest ride back.
Would come back.
I had just enough light to read a book that I was reading, and I just concentrated on reading this book. The thought that crosses your mind is, I hope I'm going to be able to do my part, without being overcome by fear.
We chatted to each other about what we're going to do, and we all went through it with our blokes, I and my 4 guys just went through what we were going to do. I certainly thought to myself, my God, I hope I'm not going to show fear in front of my men if I'm frightened.
Damn.
Tense, I suppose,
I
would be
don't know,
thing.
man. Fucking asked them to get that wrote the documentary.
Yes. Fortunately, I think we were more worried about it being rough, because it's very, as you can imagine, physically exhausting to be seasick all the time. But we were lucky. It was calm.
33 hours later, they arrived at the mouth of the estuary, and the captain of the Campbelltown, Lieutenant Commander Sam Beattie, instructed Tibbets to set the fuses on his bomb. He then began to creep up the estuary. Ideally, he'd have stuck to the deep water channel, the channel the Tirpitz would have used. But this would have meant hugging the northern shore right under the noses of the German sentries. So he had to go right down the middle, despite the fact that the water, even at high tide, was just 10 feet deep.
So he's just scratching the bottom.
To reduce the ship's draft, much of the heavy armor and the big guns had been removed. So if she did become grounded, she'd be a sitting duck.
We did go across sandbanks a couple of times and dragged a bit going over. But it was so quick that you hadn't got time to think, good God, if I'm marooned here, I'd be shot to pieces.
It's hard to know, really, what the German gunners in this pillbox were doing when the Campbelltown chugged by. I mean, yes, she'd been hurriedly converted to look a bit like a German ship, but she was trundling right down the shallows. You'd have thought that would have alerted them to the fact something was up, but obviously it didn't, because they didn't open fire. And nor did the guns at the next pillbox, or the one after that. But then, things started to go wrong. The RAF had finally agreed to stage a bombing raid, but the pilots had been told not to bomb if there was cloud cover in case they hit French civilians. Unfortunately, it was cloudy, and they hadn't been told what to do instead. So they just flew around, alerting the Germans to the fact that something was up.
Their flak guns turned very easily down onto the surface of the river, plus their searchlights.
With the Germans now suspicious, the Campbelltown's Heath Robinson modifications and fake German flag wouldn't fool them for long. And sure enough, they were soon challenged by a signal from the shore. But the British had a trick up their sleeves.
We found the German code books, naval code books, and the Germans didn't know we had them.
Oh,
and so we had the up-to-date passwords and countersigns.
So they were able to slip right by.
Much to the consternation of the German signalman, who was flashing signals asking who we were. And we were flashing back the right answers. We're a friendly force coming in for the night. We've got a damaged ship or something like this, you see, and putting them off.
Twice the Germans opened fire, but each time they were silenced by reassuring signals coming from the Campbelltown. This meant the ships could get nearer and nearer to the target.
Oh my God.
Eventually, though, the Germans realized that, yes, unbelievably, it really was a British raiding party sailing right through their front door. They managed to get to this point here, just 2,000 yards from the dock gates, which are kind of just round the headland. Maybe you can see it just over there. And all hell broke loose.
Oh, shit. And they put that British flag up quick. It was like, we in there. Y'all didn't even know we was in there.
Mills, but Campbelltown being the big target, you know, and there was a sort of glare of searchlights.
The air was filled with things that whistled, hummed and shrieked, and every one of them lethal.
The main focus for the German gunners was the bridge of the Campbelltown, where the captain, Beatty, was trying to keep a steady course by calling out steering directions. The chap at the wheel was killed. His place was taken by another raider who was killed almost immediately. So then a chap called Montgomery, who was a Royal Engineer, took over, and he was standing there thinking, what do I do with this? When suddenly there was a tap on his shoulder, and a voice said, I'll take it, old man. And it was Tibbets, the egghead, the brilliant scientist from Dartmouth, the man who designed the bomb in the bow, found himself at the wheel.
He said, you know what? See, that's why he ain't making back. That's a real ass nigga right there. He was like, hey, don't worry. We're going to make this happen.
Red hot.
The captain, the inventor, got to go down with the ship.
The wardroom, just over our heads, and going on out, didn't explode.
If just one shell hit the rudder or the engine, or worse, the bomb in the bow, the mission would be over. But at this point, it wouldn't have mattered, because Beatty was lined up on the wrong lighthouse, so he was heading for the wrong target. At the last minute, a searchlight picked out the lighthouse over there, the green one, and Beatty realised his mistake. He barked out an order. So Tibbets swung the wheel hard to the right to try and miss the jetty here, and then hard to the left again. And you've got to remember, he's in a ship that doesn't handle, doing 22 knots at night under a hail of enemy fire, and yet he managed to just graze the jetty there. That is just an extraordinarily...
Have y'all ever seen the Battleship movie when the Japanese people were like whipping the shit out of their ships? Have y'all ever seen that shit? This is what it reminds me of when he was like, yeah, that boy bent that corner. He bent that corner in the boat like he was riding the fuck out the waves, man. That's crazy.
They came round the old mole, like really shifting at this point. And pretty soon you can pick out the dock gates. There they are, look. There they are. Maybe, I don't know, 500 metres to go. Really cranking it up now, the old girl. Imagine what it would have been like to have been doing this on that night in March 1942.
It had to be bright outside, like it was just lights. It was crazy.
Massive fire coming from that bank. Aiming straight for that. What's the impact going to be like? It's going to be huge. Ship reared up, putting Tibbets's 4-ton bomb right over the gate. And despite the firestorm, Beatty turned to his men and said, well, there we are, 4 minutes late. The Navy had done its part of the job brilliantly. And now, in the 2.5 hours before Campbelltown blew, the Army had to get ashore and create havoc. Yes, the Germans had fixed gun emplacements, and yes, they outnumbered the British by 20 to 1. But that was no problem, because the raiding party, remember, were commandos.
Come on, baby. Come on,
they may have been picked for their
all the people that were out there, they was probably like, yo, one of these niggas got aim hacks or something. Like, they were like, we are fucking them up with all this gunfire, and they are still alive. What's going on? What's going on? These niggas are indestructible.
Intelligence and free thinking, but my God, they were tough. The backbone of their training was speed marching, and each commando unit would compete to see who could go the furthest in the shortest time. One group went 63 miles in 19 hours. Another marched 53 miles from Harlech to the top of Mount Snowdon and then down again in 17.5 hours. And remember, they did this while carrying 60-pound packs on their backs.
Determination is the most important thing, even on speed marches.
You want to know what'd be crazy, though? That's how I be feeling like it's cap. Because you see footage of niggas running all the time. Never one dime are you seeing footage of niggas running with any type of like giant rucksacks. Like, you never see that. You don't ever see that. It's always like he might got like a backpack on, little backpack, not that heavy looking, you know what I mean? But you don't ever see any visuals of niggas running with like 80 pounds on them. You're just like, like, you never see that. You never see that. Even in like the real war footage that you see, it's like everybody immediately ditches the backpack. Like, you never see somebody with a backpack on. Unless they're like maybe a tanker and they're carrying extra rounds, or they're a machine gunner and they got extra barrels in their bag. Like, that guy is probably carrying a bag. Nobody else has a bag.
Where our great aim was to get the chaps to 15 miles in full kit in just under 3 hours. Finish up on the assault course and firing, and then leisurely go up to the top of Ben Nevis. It's all part of mentally equipping them to do anything.
Not only was commando training tough, but it was also revolutionary. The regular army would stay fit by doing star jumps in PE kit. The commandos trained in harsh terrain in battle dress. They invented the assault course. In fact, their methods were so advanced, they're still used by elite forces today.
This is all I wrote. Oh my God. I was so advanced. I was so bad on ropes in the army. Like, I didn't believe that niggas really did shit like this. Like, when I joined the army, bro, I was like, the shit that like I thought was so fucking wrong. Like, but what was believable to me is there was like one or two people that were just like completely like pro. Like, I always knew that. I always knew that like there was one or two guys that would like make it happen, right? But oh my God, bro. Oh my God. I sucked so bad. Like, the tail end. Oh, it's insane. So did you react to Bob? Bro, can somebody time this nigga out? What do you mean, bitch? You just asked me. I've been watching. It's the same black and white video since you asked the question, you stupid bitch. The fuck are you talking about?
They're still used by elite forces today.
Determination, doing things which you thought you couldn't possibly do, like on the Tarzan course, on a rope bridge, or the death slide. And don't forget, the chaps and commandos weren't supermen. They were ordinary chaps from all walks of life, but they were trained well, trained to get the edge.
It was this shit. It was that shit right there, bro. It was that shit right there. I could never get my fucking tail leg. I could never do it. I always did the swim. Like, so you're supposed to do this, right? But I always spun and then just did the fucking like the hanging rope. You know what I'm saying? I always did it that way. I could never stay up to, like, oh my God, it used to piss me off. But then I realized that all the people that did it, they were like, what do you call it? They did what's that thing called in school where you're like, oh my God, we used to make fun of these niggas. ROTC, they did shit like that. So they had like practiced on ropes all through school and shit. And that's why they were able to do that shit. I was so pissed. Now, believe it or not, there were some niggas, but they were all like country boys, like people who had just been outside all the time. Like they were able to do that shit. I was so bad at that. Oh my God, I was so bad at it. It was shit like this in basic. It was shit like this in basic training that like showed me that like I was not the guy to go, you know what I'm saying, try and do extra shit. Aren't you like a country boy too? I was I was born in the country, but I was raised in the city.
Instead of doing weapons training on rifle ranges, commandos practiced in massive mock
battles. I was born in Louisiana, but I immediately went to Germany for like 9 years. And then every year after that, we were in like a city. You know what I'm saying? I never was a country boy. Never that. Never.
With live fire.
All the weapon training was geared to offensive action. A little example, a spring gun was normally fired on the ground. But why not use it, firing it from the hip? And this was an innovation.
And they weren't just revolutionary with guns either. They also learned unarmed combat, stuff no regular soldier had ever even heard of.
How to tackle a bloke with your bare hands. Knock him out, spoil his prospects and pinch his weapon. And his gold watch too if he's got one.
The key element was getting themselves to convince themselves.
Nigga grabbed him by the leg. Imagine being like a full-on soldier and a nigga coming up behind you and flipping you like that. Oh my God, I'd be so tight.
So they could do anything. And you can only do that in the military sense.
Hey, honestly, doing very good, bro. Doing very good, Crazy. Life's been great, you know what I'm saying? Not at all, but we're living. You know what I'm saying? Energy's been up, you know what I'm saying? We've been back in the gym, we've been working, we've been twerking. Besides that, family's good, everybody's safe, you know what I'm saying? My mom's brother did pass away like 2 weekends ago, but he was already dealing with some stuff, you know what I'm saying? It was kind of like on the verge of going there. We're just happy he's in a better place now, you know what I mean? But other than that, bro, we're fucking living, man. We're making shit to work, you know what I'm saying? We're making shit happen.
If you train people,
I hope you're doing good too,
urge them on and overcome their inner fears and give them supreme confidence.
Back in Saint-Nazaire, the commando raiding party would need all that confidence just to get ashore.
We went up on deck and we went to the bows of the ship. Well, the 12-pounder had been hit. There were a lot of dead bodies lying around the place, a lot of blood on the deck, and there was a hole in the deck. I remember Johnny Proctor lying there with his leg blown off, cheering us on.
When I came up on deck, there was a brilliant flash and a ear-shattering explosion, and I felt a blow on my knee, which I felt like a sledgehammer, and it knocked my knee on one side, and I fell to the deck. And I was lying there, and suddenly somebody grasped the rucksack and pulled me on my feet and said, "You all right, lad?" And it was Major Copeland. He said, "Bumbo, lad, at port side. Don't hang about here. It's decidedly unhealthy."
Oh, that's so crazy. Like they were still making
and
jokes.
They were holding these scaling ladders, and these two chaps were laughing and swearing and so on. And I think we probably dropped maybe even 8 feet down onto the dock.
The next thing was German. And they said, "Handy hoch." And I said, "Handy hoch to you."
While Tiger was having a set-to with Jerry, the demolition teams were on their way to their targets. One of the main targets was this underground bunker, because down there, and I'm not absolutely certain how I actually get down there, but anyway, down there are the pumps that were used for emptying all the water out of the dock. Stairs. The job of smashing this place up was given to a team of 4 commandos led by Lieutenant Stuart Chant.
Who rebuilt
Chant,
it?
a stockbroker in peacetime, had to place the explosives, even though on the way to the pump house he'd been wounded in the left leg, the right arm, and both hands. Unfortunately, the explosives had been pre-rigged in England with very short fuses. So Chant sent his men back up to the surface in relative safety, knowing that when he lit the fuses, he'd have just 90 seconds to climb 7 flights of stairs and find his way through this maze of aerial walkways in the pitch black, because there was no light down here then, while pretty badly wounded. He was a brave man.
Oh my God! I couldn't have did it. I couldn't have did it. I could have did that shit. I could have did it. I'd have been hungry for it. I'm like, let's go. Let's go. I'd have been holding my own leg in my hand. I'm with it, baby.
Chant made it. And the pumping house was gone.
What you mean? You know I'm like that.
And meanwhile, other teams were having similar successes with the winding houses at both ends of the dock.
I went up to my colonel and saluted him and said, "So we've blown up the northern winding house." And he said, "Well done, old boy." So I said, "I'm now ready to go back to England, sir."
At 2:30 in the morning, the surviving commandos came here, where they'd arranged to meet the small boats that would take them home. They were pleased as punch with the way things had gone. But the elation was short-lived, because the scene that greeted them out in the estuary was truly horrific. Almost all of the wooden MLs with their exposed fuel tanks had been blown to smithereens. According to witnesses, the whole estuary was on fire.
Chaps were drowning. There were pools of burning fuel on the water. You had to kick with your feet like mad to try and steer the raft away from the flames, and it was an absolute inferno.
There was a sort of sea of black. You could see sort of sinking boats and hear shouts coming from the river and so on. And then very quickly, the colonel said,
it was obvious that there was no transport home. So he said,
"Right, we'll fight our way out of the town and we'll
split up into small groups and make our way severally across the Spanish border."
Crazy. I'll be checking them out, man. I'll probably have to do them off stream just because everybody bitches whenever we watch them. But I will check them out. I'll let you know exactly when I do them and right before I upload them, all right?
I thought that's a bit of a tall order.
Spain was a daunting 350
They'll probably end up
miles
getting
away.
done after the
But even
England
before
games.
they could set off, they'd have to fight their way out of Saint-Nazaire itself. So that's 5,000 Germans who by this stage were awake, alert and organised, against fewer than 120 Brits, half of whom were wounded.
If you're street fighting, you must secure any crossing.
Tiger Watson came round this corner, found himself face to face with a German sniper.
Ran forward, saw him lean forward, pressed the trigger of my Thompson submachine gun, and typically Watson, the magazine was empty.
Oh.
Click, click. Unfortunately, his magazine wasn't empty, and his shot broke my arm and bowled me over.
A party of Germans ran up to him, and one of them actually used the cliched expression, "For you, the war is over."
And I thought, well, I shall have to, escape eventually, but don't feel quite up to it at the moment.
I knew, I was almost certain because there was a tower, and I had to go past it. The Germans must have seen me, and I knew they'd fire, and they did, but they hit me in the back and the arm and the leg.
Chant, the stockbroker who'd blown up the pumping house, made it to this point when a machine gun bullet fired from the top of the U-boat pens over there took his knee joint out. He was no longer able to walk, so he was captured as well. The commandos realised that they were trapped on an island and that the only way off it and into the town was across this bridge, which was guarded by what must have seemed like half the German army. By the time they got here, there were only 80 of them left, but plainly, they still had some fighting spirit left because they just formed themselves into a sort of great big mass and charged.
Captain Roy now led the assault across the bridge. Streams of bullets hitting those girders, ricocheting off the roadway. Machine guns, pom-poms, rifles. It was like a damn good November the 5th, only more so.
Bit by bit, the commando numbers were whittled down until the remaining men, low on ammo, went to ground in the town. Corin Purdon ended up in a cellar.
Okay, bet. I like that.
We suddenly heard all this shouting outside, and then the door burst open, and there were Germans standing there with their coal scuttle helmets and their weapons, looking terribly tense. Frankly, if I'd been there, I'd have chucked a couple of hand grenades down and finished us off, but they didn't. And the colonel, who had his pipe in his mouth, just sort of walked up the steps and said, well, we've done what we came to do, that's that.
Oh my God, they were all captured? What kind of bullshit is this? I thought these niggas did something crazy.
As dawn broke, the battle was pretty much over. Just 5 of the landing party would eventually make it to Spain and freedom, and 222 would escape the horror on the few remaining wooden boats. Of the 600 or so men who'd come to France the previous evening, 214 had been taken prisoner.
Think about doing all of that for your country, and none of them thought that your life was worth anything to send any type of actual backup. That's so fucking crazy to me. I feel like that's just always how it goes. All these stories are like that, bro. All of them are like that. And it's like you either have to pull it all together yourself or just say fuck it.
And 168 were dead. And worse still, it was now 7 a.m., 3 hours after the bomb in Campbelltown's nose was supposed to have gone off.
After we were washed ashore, we were put in the back of the lorry, driven into the town, and we were in this big room. And the Germans brought in a sailor. They fished out of the river and put him on the table and said, you try and revive him. And we tried to get the water out of his lungs. And by this time, we were saying to one another, the Campbelltown hasn't gone up.
The British could only console themselves that despite the failure, they had at least fought like lions.
They were patting us on the back, the Germans were amazing. Yes, they probably couldn't believe it, that anybody would venture up into a submarine base heavily defended.
Some of the stories of bravery were incredible. Out in the estuary, one of the surviving MLs had gone head-to-head with a much more powerful German destroyer. The British gunner, a commando called Sergeant Tom Durran, was asked to surrender on a number of occasions, but even though he'd been shot 16 times, he kept on firing until he was overcome by the loss of blood and passed out. But the story doesn't end there, because the captain of the German destroyer was so impressed by Durrant's bravery that when he landed, he took the trouble to find the most senior British officer and said, look, I don't know who was on that gun on that little ship, but whoever it was should get your Victoria Cross. And he got it. One of 5 awarded as a result of the action that night.
5?
So the commandos had fought well, but all they had to show for it was a destroyed pumping house and 2 damaged winding stations. Even at 10 a.m., the Campbelltown still hadn't exploded. And by this stage, the ship was crawling with German souvenir hunters. There was a real possibility the bomb might be discovered and defused. At one point in the morning, Mickey Byrne was marched along here, right past where the Campbelltown was embedded in the gates, and that called for a remarkable piece of acting. He couldn't look pleased that it was crawling with Germans, he couldn't look quizzical, wondering why the bomb hadn't gone off, and nor could he look afraid that it might go off at that precise moment, blowing him to pieces. Among the prisoners was the Campbelltown's captain, Sam Beattie, who was being held in a nearby hut.
I was interrogated by a German who spoke very good English. He discovered that I'd been in Campbelltown, and he was remarking that it was no good ramming a stout gossoon like that with a flimsy ship. At that moment, there was a bang.
Wrecked the gate. Thousands of gallons of water roared in, taking what remained of the British ship with it. And the German souvenir hunters? They found bits of them on the roof of the U-boat pens 400 yards away.
Let's fucking go.
A German petty officer rushed into the room where we were lying, saying, "We're going to shoot you all, we're going to kill you all." We just were so sort of exhausted and everything else that we were delighted that the explosion had occurred, and just said, "Please don't shout, just get on with it."
Hitler was so incensed that he later issued his infamous order that in future all captured commandos would be executed as spies. Small wonder. Damage to the Normandy dock was so comprehensive that it was not repaired until 1947, 2 years after the war was over. As a result, Tirpitz was denied a home base in the Atlantic, and as a result of that, she was forced to spend most of the war in a fjord in Norway. She was finally destroyed by RAF bombers in 1944, and incredibly, this mighty battleship, the pride of the German Navy, went to the bottom, having never sunk so much as a fishing boat.
In the smoke of giant explosions, the Tirpitz capsizes and sinks.
The price for rendering this great ship impotent had been high. 168 British dead, around 400 Germans and 16 French, shot by mistake by SS troops. Still, the attack did mean that Churchill could say to the British and the world, "We're not done yet." And it helped in France as well.
One very important thing is what the French Prime Minister said to us on our first return to Saint-Nazaire. He said, "You were the first who gave us hope."
That's crazy, bro. That's fucking nuts, man. And to know that, like, you did that much, it made that much change, but at the end of the day, you still died. Like, and imagine how much, like, craziness could have really went down that day if they just had some backup.
The commandos and the sailors who brought them on this, the greatest raid of all. Well, Tommy Durrant, the sergeant who took on a German destroyer, was captured and died of his wounds shortly afterwards. The bomb designer, Nigel Tibbets, after he'd steered the Campbelltown into the dock gate, helped wounded men onto a nearby ML and headed for home. But his little boat was hit by machine gun fire, and as his wife had predicted,
oh, really? Oh, come on. We got to get some search and destroy in.
After being captured, Mickey Byrne was sent to Colditz. After the war, he became a journalist, and today he lives in Wales, where his hobby is reading poetry.
What a world we might have made.
God, after so much destruction, bro, I can only imagine how good he feels now. I can only imagine.
After coming home, he qualified as a doctor and ended up in Africa, helping victims of leprosy.
Wow.
I can't imagine all my senses being so alert. You know, every sense of hearing and looking and your heart pumping. Well, it certainly will be the most exciting thing of my life.
It made you feel that you could stand up to the test. I think that was a relief to know that one didn't fall apart.
I'm sure the youth of today would do the same as we did. I'm sure they would.
I think that somehow or other it's such a strange thing that phlegmatic British do this sort of thing, and I could see us doing it again.
But I'm always reminded when I think about this, and it was after the war, I came across a quotation by Mark Twain, who said that courage is recognising fear, courage is conquering fear, and that's absolutely true, couldn't be truer. Yes, you were afraid, but you couldn't afford to be a coward.
Today, the great moments of military history are marked with imposing monuments, and their anniversaries honoured with much pomp and ceremony. But to find a memorial to the greatest raid of all, you have to go to a car park in Falmouth, in Cornwall. It's just a rock propped up against some railings, and it seems rather small.
I've always had the feeling that anything that really offers some hope, whether it's international or national or even individual, some idea of your own, and it's impossible, never think so. Try it.
Good night.
Wow. Wow. That was amazing, bro. That was world class, dude. Shout out, man. I had no idea Jeremy Clarkson told stories like that, but holy hell, did he do good. Shout out to you, ye old sea witch. Thanks for the vibes, dude. That was some heat.